Welcome to CS 50.11a. This is a course in creating web pages using HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS are the basic building blocks of all web pages that you see on the internet. So if you've surfed the web and wanted to learn how to make the pages you see on your computer screen, this is the perfect way to begin. Throughout the class, you'll be working on a class project of your choosing. I've chosen to do a website about my garden. The second week of class, we'll create our first web page, and we'll call it index.html. Here you see some headings, a paragraph of text, another heading, and then more text. I've also placed some text that has what I would call a soft return, where the text wraps one line under the next. And finally, I've placed a horizontal line on the page. Let's go under the hood and see the code that makes it possible. Here we go. Lots of greater than and less than symbols. We call those angle brackets. And all of the information you see within these angle brackets is HTML. Putting this on your page allows the web browser, such as Firefox or Chrome, to do certain things with the content. So for example, I've written Linda's Garden. That's content. It's going to appear on the screen. But it's surrounded by these magical little tags or elements, H1 and then ending H1. Popping down, I see H2 and then an ending H2. So because I've surrounded my text with these symbols, my web page behaves in a certain way. Now this may seem confusing at first, but I guarantee if you just hang in there, you'll be able to visit any website out there. As the page loads, you'll be able to right-click and view page source, and up will come all these little symbols we just talked about. And lo and behold, you'll start to understand what they mean, and you'll be able to see how the person built the web page you're looking at. Now before I move on, it's time for a shameless plug. This website was created by students in our program. We have a capstone class in which students work on a website for a nonprofit in Sonoma County. And the Redwood Empire Food Bank was one of our clients. So although your website will start out slow and somewhat humble, you have the potential to create a product like this if you just hang in there. Back to my simple web page, here it is during week 2 and then week 3, where I learned to create links. Now the significant thing that's changed on my index page is that I now have hypertext links. When I hover over this blue text, my cursor becomes a pointer finger and I can click and visit a web page. Cool. So I can go to another page I create and then I can go back to home. Let's go to the links page. Here I have not only created links to pages on my website, I can create links to pages on the internet. Let's go to Cottage Garden, my favorite nursery. So here I've left my website and gone out into the internet to connect to another website. I go back and let's do another type of link. I'm going to jump from the top of the page to the middle or the bottom. If I click on Local Gardens, now keep your eye on my scroll bar over here. When I click on Local Gardens, I jump to the middle of the page. Local Gardens is now at the top of the screen, and I've been able to scroll down without having to hit my scroll bar. I can then click on Return to Top and go right back up to the top again. The final type of link you'll learn is how to create an email link so that when someone clicks on this, the email software opens and you can send them a message. Before I leave, got to take one more look at those student projects. Many years ago, we did the Hallberg Butterfly Garden site, and you can see it here. Now, you won't learn how to make something like this in the first class, but if you're able to take 2 or 3 semesters worth of coursework, you'll be able to create drop-down menus, a 3-column layout, add images, text, and color. It's amazing what you can do once you understand HTML and CSS. Speaking of images and color, that's the next thing we're going to add to my sample website. Here I have a photo I downloaded from the web, and here an image that I created in Photoshop. You'll learn how to put in thumbnail images and then make them clickable so that when I hover over, I can click and go to a larger version of the image. You'll also learn about CSS, which styles the page and gives it its tan color and purple text. By using CSS, you can make sure that all the pages have consistent page color and text color. In the last lesson of the CS 50.11a course, we do text and font properties in CSS. And here you see how I've added a dashed border, created all caps, used letter spacing to pack the letters in Linda's Garden close together, and also to move the letters in general description far apart. There's over 10 different properties you can use that control the way the font and text display, and you can have a lot of fun. Now let's go to the second 8-week course, 50.11b. We build on the same website that we used in the beginning course and add a few sample pages and new tricks. Our first lesson discusses using an HTML editor. For the Mac, we recommend Text Wrangler, and for the PC, Notepad++. This software will do things like add color to various tags, help you indent. It really helps you keep track of your code and makes it much easier to be accurate when you use an HTML editor. Our next lesson discusses the box model. Here we have an area of text, and then we've added padding, this area you see right here, then a white border, then a margin, and finally you'll be calculating how big the box is, which is the width of the content plus the padding plus the border plus the margin. And that is a really helpful thing to know when we go into our next lesson, which is 2-column layout. Here's my website, and again I'm building on what I had created earlier, and in this situation I've created an area on the page where I have a width, I have padding, and notice the padding is a little uneven. There's a little more on the left than the right. I have a border, and then I have an image that displays only once in the background. I've given one color to the content and another color to the page. Now let's talk a bit about backgrounds. Here's a background with my dog Maverick, and as you can see it fills the entire screen. Now although he's a pretty cute pup, it's really distracting to have him tiled across behind this text. It's hard to read, so we don't recommend this. But we'll show you how you can have him display only once in the upper left corner, have him display across the top of the page and add enough padding so that the text is below, or display him along the left where he tiles to fill up the entire left-hand side. The next lesson involves layout, and here we have what's called a wireframe, a really primitive layout of 2 columns side by side. Here's another layout that's similar. It has a header across the top and then 2 columns side by side. Now I've put some placeholder text. I'm going to put a header here. I'm going to put navigation on the left, the content on the right, and below the content, a footer. I recommend you create a simple wireframe before you start creating a more complicated website. And we use this as an intermediate step to go from this to this. We have the header, we have navigation, we have the content, and then down at the very bottom, we have a footer. Here we see the side-by-side wireframe, and now the side-by-side layout. Now once we've done that, there are even more variations. We can display the navigation horizontally in the header and format it so it displays as buttons along the left. Now, as you look at this page, it looks exactly like a page I showed you just a minute ago. But in this lesson, we use what's called semantic or structural tags. So let's take a look at what those are. We're going to be using elements or tags that describe the content. Here we have an opening and closing header tag. We have a section with an ID, and then we have a nav tag for our navigation. Here's the opening and closing nav. When things are over off to the side, we call them an aside, and here's the opening and closing aside tag, and then of course another section for content. So although this lesson and this lesson look almost identical, the elements we used and the way we applied the CSS changed dramatically. And once you learn the semantic tags, you'll be well on your way to mastering HTML5. Next, we have a lesson on tables. Whenever you want to present a grid of information, I recommend a table. Here I have a perennial flower fact sheet with a thumbnail image, the color of the flower, the color of the foliage, a description of the height, and then the name. Down below I have a caption tag, and up here I've managed to do something that's pretty slick. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, but here I've spanned all 5 columns with some special HTML code. Here I have 1, 2 rows, and all of these elements span those 2 rows. Again, some HTML code we're happy to show you. We use CSS to control the background color, the space around the content, and the border. Tables are a great tool when you need to present a lot of information in a small area. We also cover forms. The unique thing about a form is that you go in and type information, and then down at the bottom there's a button called Submit. When you click on this, a script that sits at the student server will process your information and send you an email with the results. Once you've created your form and used the correct HTML so that it can be processed by a CGI script and send you an email, you'll see how useful forms can be. Before I end the video, I wanted to show you some of the student work from my last class. Here we have a website from Matthew Bradle. He put a background image on his page that doesn't repeat. You can scroll and it just stays in position. He has several images here and a background color that's transparent so you can see the vines behind it. And then he's links from one page to the other with a fairly consistent look because he's using the header and 2-column layout. Here's Miranda Cook. She has a website about armor. And again, she has a fairly consistent look from one page to the next with lots of photos. And as we return home, we can see she's even added a video. One of the most popular types of websites that I've had over the years is recipe websites, and I want to thank Denise Gonzalez for doing such a great job at this website. She has a header along the top that has a large image and the name of her website. She has navigation along the left in the form of buttons. We can go to what I call a second level page, which is her recipes, and then as we click, we go to a third level page, which has a recipe for, in this case, peppered steak. The site looks consistent because she's used an external CSS file to control the colors and fonts used at every page. Here's Adriana Vigil's portfolio. If you have work from other classes and you'd like to be able to show it off the next time you apply for a job, a portfolio is a great solution. So here we have the header and 2-column layout again. as we go from page to page, we see that that remains consistent and that Adriana has just kept a very consistent and simple color scheme: red, white, and black. Always use neutrals with bright colors. It helps make sure the content comes through and you don't overpower the visitor with too much color. Now here I'm at her artwork, and as I go into line drawing, I'm going to see how she used a table. She's placed a thumbnail image and given information about the artwork. When I click on it, I go to another page that has a larger version of the image. And then I can go back to click on the next one. It's important to make a circle so that as you take people into your website, you also give them a way to back out. The last project I'd like to show you is a website about a newborn baby, recently born to one of my students. Congratulations. This is a beautiful baby, and I really enjoyed watching this website develop. So on the home page, we have the name of the website in an H1 tag, and we have a photograph here of hands and feet. And then we have a beautiful picture of Chelsea. We use the navigation, and you can see here that things are consistent. The background image is consistent. The header text at the top and the image in the upper left corner and the navigation are all the same. Here we have thumbnail images, which are smaller images, and when I click on them, I go to larger versions of those images. And again, we can go back so we can go full circle. Here we are at the links page, and this student chose to add images at this page as well, and these images are part of jump links. So if I click right here, I'm going to jump down to the middle or bottom of the screen. So because they've used a consistent background image, consistent navigation, and consistent header graphic, they have a very professional looking website after only 16 weeks. I hope we see you in the class next semester too. As soon as you register for the class, you might want to start thinking about what the subject of your first website will be. Family, recipes, a hobby. The possibilities are endless.